Sometimes it's easier to remember the bad things our parents did rather than the good things. It's easier to remember the bad times than the good times. It's easier to remember the negative things that happen versus the good things or positive things that happen. I remember as I was writing my book about my dad, I could literally just in detail remember every part of a negative, a bad situation where my dad was abusing my mom or certain arguments he had with my mom. I remembered every detail, where I was, what I was thinking, what I was feeling, what was happening around me. And I could write it all down. Then something strange happened. When it came to the part of the book where I was writing about the good times, it was almost like I just grouped them all together. It was almost like I couldn't remember, the details. I couldn't remember all the details of what had happened. Where was I? What was I doing? What was I thinking? How was I feeling? I couldn't remember the details of the good times. And I started thinking, why? Why is it that negative memories, the bad times, I can remember everything? But when it came to the good times, I just kind of glossed over them. It was kind of like, some big summary of them, but I couldn't remember the same amount of details. I read an article that said that our brains as they evolved, right, learn to look at negative situations at a part of our brain. We use a part of our brain, the amygdala, that has to do with memory, but it also has to do with survival. And so as our brains evolved, we were able to remember more details of a negative thing, right? Because it was inevitable for us to identify threats, to make sure we don't get hurt again, to make sure we're not in that situation again. And so literally our brains have developed in a way that negative memories, negative things that happen to us, we naturally remember more details about them than happy things. Why? Because our brains have developed in a way where it's all about survival. And because happy times, right, is not synonymous or connected to surviving, we don't remember as much detail. Wow. So, and then here's the other part that also messed me up, is the research says that not only do we remember more about these negative things, these negative times, these bad times, but we also sometimes distort them. That it means it's distorted. That means that sometimes all the details aren't right. That means that sometimes we could get some things wrong and it's out of proportion. What am I saying to you? Isn't it strange that you could think oftentimes of all these negative things that happened growing up, but the good things, you find yourself not being able to remember as much about them? Perhaps there's some distortion there. Perhaps I'm not trying to diminish the bad times, but what I am trying to say is perhaps your parents were not as bad as you thought. Perhaps your childhood was not as bad as you thought. Listen, I am not trying to diminish anything bad that happened to you or any negative experience. But what I am saying is it may not be the complete, total truth. Meaning that there is a piece, right, where we blame our parents for all these bad things, but also do we give them credit for the good things that they did? I want to challenge you, encourage you to take some time to try to remember what are the good things that your parents did? What are the good times that you had with them? Even with my dad, I started remembering, all the times, my dad and I talked about church. We talked about sports. I remember us sitting down and watching karate movies together. I still to this day watch karate movies. I love them, right? Because I did that with my dad. I remember talking and having conversations about motorcycles with my dad. It's probably like my third or fourth love of my life. And I remember us being able to go and have froyo together, right? I remember having deep conversations about God with my dad. I remember when my dad used to preach, man, he would walk down the aisles, old school preacher, and he would put his hand on the pew that I was sitting in, and he would preach and teach. And I remember just putting my hand on his hand while he would preach and teach, thinking, man, this dude is amazing. If I can do that, you can too. Sometimes it's easier for us to say, well, it was all bad. But I encourage you, maybe it wasn't. I want to invite you to take some time to reflect, and maybe you'll start remembering a little bit more. And let's celebrate our parents. I want to celebrate my dad who passed. I want to celebrate my mother, who was phenomenal. One of the greatest women on this planet I've ever met. My Shiro. I want to say I'm grateful for all the good things that she has poured into me, said to me. She is the reason I am the man I am today, why I have the confidence I have today, why I talk the way I talk, because she spoke to me. She talked to me. She had conversations when I was a kid, and she spent time with me. And so I'm so grateful for my mom, LaTanya Smith, but also for my second dad, Irie Smith, who taught me the value, right, of what it means to be a man and to take care of my family, to provide. So I just want to say, I encourage you to call your parents, tell them about the good things they've done. If your parents are not alive, write a letter to them and say, I just want to remember the good things that you did, and the good things you said, and the good times we had. Yeah, you can remember all the bad stuff in the detail. Yeah, I get it. But will you give your parents some credit for the good things they did? And just really remember, if you're a parent, or one day will be a parent or grandparent, trust me, you'll want somebody to do that to you as well. So listen, I believe that our relationship with our parents are worth fighting for. God bless you.